Davinci Resolve, a professional video editing software. Can I learn it in only 12 hours? Okay, so I've been hearing a lot of good things from Davinci Resolve lately. I was already on the fence of learning it when I got the notification saying my Premiere subscription was nearly out.
Pay more.
This subscription is paid by the school I attend, and I figured it probably wouldn't be renewed until school starts up again, so I decided to give Davinci a shot. Instead of learning DaVinci like I would most programs, which is slow and steady, I figured why not just do one big 12-hour learning session to at least get the basics of the software. Earlier, I'd already kind of done something like this when I did my 12-hour learning challenge on Minecraft animations, except this time I don't know anything about the software I'm going to be doing this challenge on. My main goals for this challenge is to be able to learn keyframes, basic coloring, how to add titles, basic visual effects, since I heard it could actually be used as a replacement to After Effects, though I still haven't tried After Effects in the first place. And the main point is to start getting used to using shortcuts in DaVinci after coming from nearly 2 years of Premiere. Okay then, so with that intro out of the way, let's get into Resolve and start this challenge. I first went to the Blackmagic website to download Resolve and found out it would take 2 hours, so I paused the challenge and came back an hour later and it was done. So much for 2 hours. Now that I was actually in Resolve, I started choosing footage from my Washington trip to play around with, before watching any tutorials. I quickly found out how much easier it is to add fade in and fade out than Premiere, since all you need to do is drag a little handle that is on the video. From there, I wanted to change the speed of my video, since I tend to use that a lot in Premiere, maybe even a little too much at times. Luckily, it was pretty similar. All I had to do was just right-click and choose Change Clip Speed. One thing I didn't find out right away, but is honestly amazing, is the fact that with Command R, it allows you to adjust the speed of your video way more freely than Premiere ever did, since you can add points and then drag to speed up only sections of your video. After playing with that one section a little, I wanted to add transitions and see what default transitions are available without making my own. Turns out they have quite a few, but this is when I first started finding out some limitations with the free version. I then wanted to try keyframes. I ended up getting a little confused since I couldn't change where the keyframes were, and I decided to leave with what I had since I didn't really know how to edit them. Ironically, I found I was super close to figuring out if only I had tried moving one of the keyframes when I click the button that actually allows you to move them. Anyways, I still wanted to try a couple things before I moved on to following tutorials, which mainly consisted of playing around with basic colors, audio, and text. Honestly, my favorite part about playing with the color panel was making the trees purple. Of course, I didn't leave them that way, but it was just fun to do. With text, I found the presets kind of weird since I couldn't really edit them, at least not in the way I expected, but it turns out that's because the effects were done with the Fusion tab, which is basically how visual effects is done in DaVinci. I then tried to add reverb, but gave up on that pretty quickly. That wrapped up my experiments without tutorials, and honestly, I was pretty happy with this result. At this point, I'd spent only an hour and 10 minutes in Resolve, so another 10 hours and 50 minutes left. The next 3 hours I spent watching videos on a small iPad, which consisted of a couple useful keyframe videos, one of which showed how to smooth keyframes, which was pretty wild. But with the newly learned information, I ended up having a bit of fun practicing with a drone clip that I shortened quite a bit. With that same drone clip, I ended up watching a very good coloring video that had some useful tips that allowed me to get my drone clip from looking like this to this. I personally really didn't expect the results to be so noticeable, but they were. I then finally got to learn some basic reverb with the music. From here, I found a tutorial that looked absolutely phenomenal, since from the looks, it looked like the phone was being tracked with the effects all being applied to it. So I ended up spending 2 hours working on this cool effect, even though the tutorial was only around 13-ish minutes long. This tutorial was amazing and really made me realize how powerful the Fusion tab is, especially with the tracking abilities, since with Blender and Premiere it tends to take quite a while and the results are only mediocre. Granted, you could spend even longer making either program do better, but it would require more time. Blender is also a 3D program, so it's not really in the same ballgame as DaVinci. Point being, from that small little experience, DaVinci's tracking abilities are amazing. I then wanted to add sound effects with Soundly, but for some reason I couldn't get this to work. And I had to spend 30 minutes trying to get it to work. So I decided I'd just give up on that and move on and get it to work later. Anyways, here is the phone results. By the way, I'll likely have added sound effects to most of these clips after the 12-hour challenge at the compilation at the end of the video. Sadly, the next 40 minutes didn't really do me any good, because what I really wanted to do doesn't seem to be possible with DaVinci, which is using 360 footage with Davinci Resolve. Sadly, the add-on that I did find to make it work wasn't even available for Mac, which means all the 360 footage I have will have to be edited with some other software, likely Premiere. Ironically, even Premiere doesn't do reframing natively, and I'd have to use another add-on unless I'm wanting to export pure 360 video, like what I've done once on my Dragon Adventure channel. So with that letdown, I decided I'd follow another video so that I could get another success. Specifically, a video on creating lightning with Fusion. Like the other tutorials, this was pretty cool, and I love that you can actually do this with DaVinci. My favorite part about this Fusion panel is that it's actually node-based, which makes it convenient for me because Blender has a lot of nodes. And I'm finally starting to get used to them. The main difference with these nodes is that instead of Shift-A to add them like Blender, it's Shift-Spacebar, which took me a while to figure out, since none of the tutorials were mentioning it. Seems how most would probably already assume that you know this. The next tutorial I moved on to was a cool card effect, which was done by the same guy who did the phone tutorial. After completing this tutorial, I wanted to learn about a cool outline effect that he showed off in his video, and after I completed that, I realized I wanted to click through all of the OpenFX that were available with the free version. I basically just clicked through everyone and used a lot of them in another short edit. At this point, I only have 2 hours and 37 minutes left, working on my own short edits and applying what I've learned. I ended up pausing the timer, getting some basic trampoline footage of me doing some backflips and copper running up. And then started adding the basic effects, once I had resumed the timer, of course. An hour and a half later, I got this. I personally thought it was kinda cool and was actually pretty fun doing it. At this point, I was getting pretty tired since typically I go to bed around 8, but I still managed to work for 40 more minutes and got to play around with tracking even more, which did make me realize the tracking system isn't always 100% ideal, as you can tell from this result with the fire. With this result, I ended up going to bed and decided to finish the final 24 minutes of the challenge in the morning. Ironically, when I woke up, I got a little too sucked in to what I was doing and ended up going past the 24 minutes mark and spent 40 minutes instead in order to finish the result. But just like that, the 12 hours of Davinci Resolve challenge was done. Wow! So there we have it. With the challenge done, I now have 9 short edits that I did with Davinci Resolve, and each one I learned loads during the process. But before I play those clips, let's talk about how it went and if it would be worth it for someone like me who had experience with Premiere and then wanted to try out Resolve. Either way, I definitely think Davinci Resolve is an amazing software, but don't get me wrong, it definitely has its flaws. The big ones I personally noticed was the lack of working with 360 footage, which shows the bigger point to many people, which is the lack of add-ons, since not many people use it when compared to the Premiere, which means less add-ons. Otherwise, DaVinci has all the features I was really hoping to see, which makes it a very viable alternative to Premiere. And in some ways, I even like DaVinci Resolve more. In fact, even though the Premiere subscription was renewed the day after I did the challenge, which is kind of ironic, I actually plan to continue using Resolve, at least for the foreseeable future, unless I have any major issues, in which case there will be a comment below. If you're coming from Premiere, I would definitely recommend at least giving the Resolve a shot on how well the program works for you. Otherwise, if you're just looking for a free video editing software, then I would totally recommend Davinci, since the free version has most of the features you would really need. I'll personally upgrade if I ever make money on YouTube, mostly so that I could support the developers who are updating the software very quickly, and it's actually very impressive. So yeah, if I have any major issues that cause me to switch, I'll leave a comment below like I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I'm gonna head inside because it's hot in here, and I'll play the clips right now. Bye!
Pitch high. Pitch low.
Hey, look at this little fire! It's even sticking to me! Wait a moment, it's sticking to me! Get off, get off, get off!